Hey, this is Steve Halleck of TickTocking. As always, you can find me at Steve Halleck on Instagram, and you can see all the watches at TickTocking.com. Here I have a watch that's particularly special to me and in my kind of watch life. This is by MB&F, and it's a version of the HM3 frog, which is called the Choco Frog or Chocolate Frog, and you can see why. It's this really cool chocolate color. Now, this watch was made as a limited edition for the purists, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, a little bit about how this watch came to be, and why this is kind of so cool that I have it. But before we do that, let's run through the watch itself. Now, HM3, originally, there was the Star Cruiser and the Sidewinder. The Star Cruiser was in this configuration, the Sidewinder was like this, and they had the numbers fixed and a little red line that would go around. But we thought there'd be a cooler way to do it. I say we because at the time I was running MB&F North America. I was the 4th or 5th person at MB&F, so pretty early on there. And when the Frog was released, this kind of seemed like the ultimate execution of the HM3, because what you have is these big kind of frog eyes. You can see why it's called the Frog, like a frog coming up out of the water. But in this version, the numbers themselves turn. So you read right at the center at these two lines, and you have hours and minutes. And here you have, 6 o'clock, right? So pretty cool watch, definitely far out. At the top, you've got the Battle Axe signature Battle Axe rotor. Now, this is basically a movement that's been turned upside down. You've got the automatic winding system on the top here, and it's been engineered, the rotor and the winding system, so that it really spins very freely. So you get a lot of kind of movement and life on the wrist with this watch. It's going all the time, and it's kind of very cool. The problem with a lot of mechanical watches, even if they've got really cool mechanics going on, is that once they're on the wrist, they're static. And you definitely don't have that with this watch. There's a lot of, kind of kinetic fun to be had here. Around the edge, you've got a date. You read it here at the arrow. So right now it's indicating the 4th. And on the back, these are big ceramic ball bearings that make the whole system work. And otherwise there's not much to see here because it is all on the top right there. So for the Chocolate Frog, like I said, it was 10 pieces for the purists. And this was a pretty cool project that's been a little bit overlooked now in the history of modern watches. Max and I had this idea that perhaps we could use these online media outlets. People were trying to kind of figure out e-commerce and figure out what to do with retail and alternate ways to, run a watch business, basically. And we had this idea that you could use an online media outlet to be a retailer to some extent. So this was kind of a test, and I had previously been very close with the purists. The Purist Forum was the kind of main source of data about independent watchmaking that was out there. And it's where I learned everything that I learned, basically, about independent watches. And I became close with them and went to a bunch of events with them, and eventually became an executive staff member there. And so I was really close with them. And so Max and I started talking about the idea of potentially seeing if one of these online outlets could sell watches, and of course, naturally, the purists were the great choice for that. So I approached them, and we did this project together, and we really didn't know what was going to happen because nobody had sold, a series of really high-end watches online like that before. And much to our surprise, basically, they sold out immediately, and it was a really, really big success. So nowadays this is common with Hodinkee especially, Revolution's doing it now, things like that. But this really was the first watch that that kind of model was done with. and it was my baby, basically. So it was a big deal for me, and this one happened to have been the first piece that was sold out of that collaboration, so kind of extra special. It is the brown is a chocolate PVD. Basically, the case is made out of titanium. The accents are all rose gold, and you have this really cool strap with this kind of golden brown stitching on the black strap, and it comes on a rose gold deployant buckle just to kind of tie it all in. So let me show you the watch on the wrist. This version of HM3, you know, all the frogs are actually pretty easy to read the time, as opposed to the Star Cruiser and Sidewinder are a little bit harder. But obviously it's wild, but it fits the wrist really well. You know, this lug comes at an angle. This one goes basically at a very steep angle. And so it hugs the wrist quite well. And, you know, it sits nicely. The coloring is really, works really well on most skin colors. I like it quite a bit on mine. So, and there you can see what I'm talking about, where the you know, I'm barely moving. I'm just here at a desk, but the rotor is kind of going all the time, which is really cool. So, and again, you can just read it very easily here now at 6:05. We've been going for about 5 minutes here. And so there it is. This is certainly my favorite version, and a very special watch for me in my history. It was, I think, a big deal. It set a pretty amazing precedent and was an unexpected success. But I'm really proud of how this project went and how the watch turned out. It's just an awesome watch also. So this is the MB&F HM3 Chocolate Frog, made for the purists. It was a 10-piece limited edition, and I happen to have one right now. So glad I could share it with you guys. Thanks.